Hey guys, how's it going? Late night editing Kat here. I've just sat down to edit and realized that I forgot to film something for the start of this video where I explain what the heck I'm doing. So you get me. This does need explanation because it's an experiment. It's something I've never tried before and I've never seen anyone else do it before. That's not to say it hasn't been done because like everything's been done before, but I didn't have anything to go off. So this is just a complete experiment for me. I was trying to get to sleep at about, I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning at this point. I've been trying to sleep for hours, and of course, you know, at that point your brain's just coming up with stupid stuff. So one of the ideas my brain came up with was, I wonder if I did all the bare bones of an artwork digitally, so like the line work and all the shading and stuff. If I then printed that onto watercolor paper, could I stain that with ink to color it? And then that way I would get like all the cool details, you know, crisp details and stuff I can get digitally, but with the really cool textures of watercolor paper and ink. So then I also had to have an idea of what to draw for this experiment, just something fun, I figured, an excuse to do something fun and non-work related. So I decided, since I'd been having a marathon recently of Marvel movies and Infinity Wars sort of fresh in my brain, I was going to do a prediction for the next movie for Infinity War. And I used to do these when I was in high school. I used to always do movie predictions for sequels of movies that I'd been sort of nerding out over, and I was really excited for the next movie. And more often than not, I would be predicting a character death because I'm one of those lucky people that almost always has their favorite character die. Yeah. So, having said all that, I'm predicting the death of Loki. I'm gonna cry like a baby if I'm correct, and I hope I'm wrong. I think it'll be probably an Infinity War, but I guess possibly Avengers 4. And I figured, seeing as I don't think he's gonna get the Viking funeral that he deserves as a member of Loki's army, I should be able to do that for him. So that's what I'm drawing today. If you guys want to have a chat down below about whether you think I'm correct or not in that prediction, or what your other predictions for Infinity War are, I'd love to nerd out with you down there. And if you want to see how I got to this point and the process I took, and maybe you guys can try it for yourself, feel free to keep watching. So I started this one out by doing a few facial studies of Loki and Hiddleston. I've never quite been happy with how I've painted Hiddleston in the past, so I wanted to get some practice in. Ironically, I ended up covering up most of his face for this one, so it was kind of pointless. So this is what the finished digital piece looked like. I didn't bother to record it because there's already plenty of how to do digital stuff on my channel. And I figured, you know, this video is more about the process of working out if I can actually stain this with the ink. But I thought I'd show you what this looks like on screen because it actually didn't translate as well as I would have liked to the watercolor paper when it was printed. It did lose quite a few lovely details that are in this image that I really wish had made it onto the watercolor paper. But again, this is an experiment and that's something for me to work on. Particularly, I liked how I did his face in this, and I don't think it translated as nicely to the finished product. Having said that, I am my own biggest critic, so maybe you guys will like the finished product better. I also put a lot of etchings and designs on his clothing and armor in this, which is completely missing when it was printed. It's just too small a detail to translate, unfortunately. So I took some blue Stonehenge 300 GSM cold press, I think it's like a medium roughness watercolor paper, to my printers, and I had them print this black and white image onto it in toner. We were all surprised to see that it came out blue. So I don't know if that's because it was on the blue watercolor paper or if it would have come out blue anyway. That's something to play with at a later date, I think, and see what further experiments create. It was fine by me though, because I always make my shadows blue and purple anyway, and this particular image was going to be quite blue, so it actually worked out for the better. As you can see, it did lose a little bit of detail, as I said. Certain spots, there's sort of like, you know, dots all the way through where it's kind of mottly. I don't know if that would be improved if I printed on a hot press smooth paper. I think I'm going to try that next. But I do kind of like the mottly effect. I think the issue is because I printed this small, it's taking up a lot more detail than if I would print this larger or something with a lot less detail in it. I think the mottly effect would be quite nice. So I'm going to be using both acrylic and shellac inks for this one. Acrylic is a little bit opaque and the shellac is completely transparent. So I'm going to be using them sometimes mixed together, but mostly in different capacities. Sometimes where I just want to be able to see the line work through and just stain it entirely, and other places where I want to sort of knock that blue watercolor paper out a little bit. I've also got a little tester piece of the watercolor paper here just to test my colors on because it isn't a completely white paper. I just want to make sure the colors are working on the blue. So as I'm about to put the very first ink stroke on this artwork, I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm definitely screaming internally and crossing all my toes. I'm just a little bit worried that maybe the tone is going to come off or blend with the ink, or just, you know, terrible things are going to happen. But yep, moment of truth. Turns out it's totally fine. Yay! So basically what I'm going to do now is just start laying down all the absolute base colors of everything, and then after that I'm going to go back in on top of it and start adding a few more shadows and depth and lighting and that sort of stuff. Because I've already got the initial outlines and the basic shading, hopefully I shouldn't, you know, have to put too much extra down. I should just be able to stain this and pretty much be done with it. So now that I've done all the base colors for the flat areas, I'm going to start on the water. This is my favorite part because I get to do a wet on wet technique. This is where you just pop down a whole lot of water in the area you want the ink to spread to, and then you just start dropping pigment down and you let it do its thing. Another really cool thing to do with this technique is once you've put that pigment down, you can then drop water back on top of it, and it gives this really cool effect where it starts like pushing the pigment back again, and it's just so pretty. And then I'm just going to add some splatters because that's what I do. Once they've sat for a little while, I'm just going to dab them away. It gives a really cool effect where the pigment is darker at the outside of the splatter and nice and light on the inside. I don't know why I like it, it's just something I'm obsessed with. So now I'm starting to go in and add more shadows than what's currently there. I'm just using a sort of indigo dark blue color, and I'm just going to do all the shadows in one go, and then I'm going to hair dry that because I'm too lazy to wait for it to dry on its own, and then I'm going to come back and add another layer to sort of like the darker areas, and then another layer again to darken them up again. So now I'm starting to really zero in on the light. It's my biggest light source in this picture, and I'm just adding some reflections to the water here. And now I'm going back in and adding even more shadows. Now that I have a light source that I'm sort of paying more attention to, I'm going to make everything around it a bit more contrasty. And then I realized I forgot to color the pattern in on his scarf, and yeah, I actually forgot what the pattern looked like between doing the digital version and this one, so I'm just checking that too. And adding some reflections from the side of the boat in the water before I add another layer of shadows. Did I mention I'm doing a lot of layers of shadows and darkening them and darkening them and darkening them like my soul? And now I'm jumping in with a white gel pen just to add some really nice bright highlights where the light's sort of hitting off shiny objects and stuff. Following that, I'm adding some less bright highlights with a white acrylic ink. And of course, I wanted to see if Copics worked on this too, and was curious whether it was going to sort of remove the printed ink or anything, because what kind of ambassador would I be if I didn't try Copics on everything? I actually really loved using the Copics on this, because as you guys can see throughout this artwork, there's still little spots of where the darkness is just not taking. And it didn't matter how many times I added layers, there were still these little light spots within the really dark shadows. So I'm basically using the Copic to darken those little dots up, and it's working amazingly. And now I'm adding some white highlights to the water just to make it look like the boat's sort of sitting in the water and it's sort of moving through the water. And now I'm grabbing my Express It Fine Mist Sprayer. I'm going to put some dark blue ink in there, and then I'm going to pray to the gods that I don't stuff this up. I'm doing this because A, I love the texture that the spray bottle gives me, but B, because I felt like I really needed to knock back those areas that weren't in direct light, and adding that more of that contrast makes the light look brighter in the image. Now I'm brightening up some of the areas that the light will be hitting, just because they got knocked back a little bit too much by the spray, and I want them to pop a little bit more. And then I'm going in with a dark blue Copic multi-liner just to make some of the lines that have started to disappear over this whole period visible again. And that's it. So I think overall, I'm really excited with where I could go with this technique. I'm definitely forcing myself to not look at the original digital artwork and this finished one next to each other. There's a lot of stuff, as I said at the start, that I'm sort of mourning the loss of that was in the digital artwork. And I think looking at this now after a couple of days of having finished it, it's not as bad as I thought it was when I first finished it. There's definitely things that I think can improve. I want to try smooth hot press paper. I want to try something that's a little bit less tiny and detailed. If I were to do something this detailed again, I would definitely make it bigger than A3. But I think this was a good first experiment. If any of you guys have tried this before, or you have some suggestions, or maybe something else you want me to try similar to this, let me know. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my artwork where I have a vague idea of what I'm actually doing, you can check out all my social medias below. Also, if you'd like to check out more of my videos and you like those, I'd love it if you wanted to subscribe because I'd love to have you. And please press the bell icon because I'm really bad at updating regularly. I don't even know when I'm going to update. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! And also don't forget to nerd out with me below about Infinity War because I need to talk to people about it. I'm so excited.